Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do a little video on what I've been reading in the past 6 months. Reading is something very important to me. Like since I was a child, I kind of got myself like lost in books, and I loved the kind of solace that I found in reading. And then as an adult, when I was living back in Boston, I had more time to read, but now being in New York City with the fast-paced lifestyle and stuff, it's been really hard to find time to read. So a few months ago, probably about 6 months ago, I decided that I was going to commit to attempting to read every single morning on my commute to work. So as you guys might know, with the subway in New York, it's a little bit iffy. You never know if you're actually going to get a seat. I actually never get a seat. I think the only times I ever get a seat is when I am commuting to different places that are not to work on my daily commute. And so that kind of ruined the flow a bit and stuff like that. But the long and the short of it is that I have been really consistent with reading at least a few pages every single morning on my way to work. And I kind of wanted to just share with you guys what I've been reading and my thoughts on what I've been reading. So as always, I've made some notes because I always get off topic, you know this, but especially with like books, I can go on and on and on about books forever. So I made some quick points on all the books that I'm going to show you guys today to kind of keep me on track. So one of my most favorite books that I've read in the last 6 months is Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. I'm sure you guys have all heard of this book, but I actually never had the chance to read it. I never read it in high school with like the reading curriculum or anything like that. I just literally never had a chance to read it, but I've always heard how good it was. So actually this book kind of fell into my lap at work. Actually one of the founders of the company was doing a whole like move or something like that, and he gave all of his like excess books to our little like library section in our office. And before putting them there, my coworker asked me if there was any that I was interested in. So this is one of the ones that I took. So then I felt compelled to like then dive into reading it, because obviously I've been wanting to read it. It's on my list, and the fact that it just kind of fell into my lap and I was just gonna buy it someday eventually felt like a little bit of a sign. But yeah, so the gist of the story is, it's hard to like kind of explain, but it's essentially just like a story about a man in his life. I don't know, I think it was like, I can't remember what year it's set in. I'll take a look and then I'll put that information here, but basically it's about a man in his life and all the kind of crazy things he goes through, and then it actually kind of becomes this like apocalyptic tale, essentially. So that's like the general gist of it, but what I got out of it and what I feel about it is that it's more like a commentary on the absurdities of life, essentially, and also just the world that we live in and the society and all of the beliefs that we have and the ways of living that we have, and the idea that life is something so much bigger than us, just us human beings. It's like a whole concept and a whole entity in and of itself. And it gets into also like how we assign value to things as human beings, and our consciousness and stuff like that. And the part that really compelled me is that Kurt Vonnegut actually created this whole religion, which is the basis of the book, which I thought was so intriguing, and I loved so much because it shows a lot about the role that religion plays in societies. So I thought that was really interesting, and also it kind of reminded me a lot of my favorite book of all time, A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. He creates this whole language in that book, and I loved that. I read that when I was in high school, and it spoke to me so much, and it became one of my favorite books. And a part of that was because of the whole language and kind of having a different idea of communication and beliefs and thoughts than just what's typical or what I'm used to. And so a similar kind of idea with the religion aspect. It's called Bokenism, that he's created in this novel. So I just wanted to share with you guys some of my favorite little like passages, I guess, of the book. And actually I'm going to start with the prologue. So essentially, I'm not going to read, this is going to be very quick, but so the prologue, which like when I read it I was just like, this is the book for me. It says, "Nothing in this book is true. Live by the FOMA," and then there's an asterisk, "harmless untruths that make you brave and kind and healthy and happy." That, I don't know, I just felt like that resonated with me a lot, because it's like very true about life in general. Like as long as we're not making others unhappy or doing negative things and spreading negative energy, we should live in a way that makes us kind, happy, and healthy. And I just kind of, I don't know, I just resonated with that. And another passage that I loved, I have a lot of passages marked down in this book of what I love, but I just want to keep it brief, so I'm just going to do one more passage, but it's on page 55, and it reads, "There was one where he bet I couldn't tell him anything that was absolutely true. So I said to him, 'God is love.' And what did he say? He said, 'What is God? What is love?' But God really is love, you know," said Miss Foss, "no matter what Dr. Honecker said." So obviously you're not going to know the people in the story or anything like that, but the gist of it is just, it really touched me, because I always, there's a lot I have to say about religion, my feelings about religion, and I think one of the things that I've always felt, no matter how many different religions I've been exposed to and involved in, is that God is love, and that means to me so much more than just God as in the guy that's up in the sky or whatever, the guy that you read in the Bible, but like the whole entire idea of something bigger than ourselves. And I think for me, the greatest thing I can take away from any religion is the idea of love. And that's all there is. And so this related with me because just, I don't know, like you don't have to believe in God as an entity, you don't have to believe in God as a person, what have you, but I think everyone can relate to believing in love. And yeah, so that made me feel good. So another one of my favorites is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, which I've talked about in another video of mine. I can find it and link it down below. But when I was talking about living my best life and manifesting my dreams and everything that I wanted, essentially this book kicked my ass into gear. I was almost gonna pause on swearing, but literally, like, that's the only way to put it. It kicked my ass into gear, and it gave me such a great perspective. And honestly, I have to do an entire video unpacking all that I've learned and felt and thought about this book, because it's literally so motivating and so essential to growth. But essentially, this is somewhat of a self-help book, I guess you could say, and it's all about taking control of your life and going after what you want and actually taking what you want versus waiting for it to just come to you. And it's also just kind of about like the idea that we let beliefs and concepts that we've been taught or subconsciously taken in, or from media or what have you, we let those guide our lifestyles, and we don't realize that we actually do have the control and we actually do have the power, and we can have the life that we want to have. So one of my favorite passages from this book is on page 37, and it reads, "We're on a planet that somehow knows how to rotate on its axis and follow a defined path while it hurtles through space. Our hearts beat, we can see. We have love, laughter, language, living rooms, computers, compassion, cars, fire, fingernails, flowers, music, medicine, mountains, muffins. We live in a limitless universe overflowing with miracles. The fact that we aren't stumbling around in an inconsolable state of sobbing awe is appalling. The universe must be like, what more do I have to do to wake these bitches up? Make water their most precious resource rain down from the sky?" I didn't read that in a really great way at all, but because I was laughing just at the idea that we literally can make so little of such an amazing, beautiful universe. But anyway, I really resonated with that passage because it was just like, wow, like, we have been given so many amazing, beautiful things in this world, even if we're at our lowest point, even if we, you know, have went through really crap times in our life, which we all have. At the end of the day, we have to remind ourselves that we live in a beautiful universe. That's something that we know, and that's something that we can always appreciate. Other things may change, but we can always appreciate the fact and remind ourselves of the fact that this universe is amazing, and we're so lucky to be on this universe and to have consciousness. And I don't know, so yeah, it just resonated with me in that way, and I just thought it's such a good reminder for me as a human being that, like, wow, even when my problems seem like they're bigger than anything, at the end of the day, I do have even the smallest thing stuff to be really grateful for. And at the end of the book, she does give a lot of recommendations of books and also seminars and I think articles and such that have inspired her and helped her get to where she is in her life. So definitely check that out as well. So the next thing that I want to share with you guys is this book of poetry called The Princess Saves Herself in this one. So one day I was just mulling around in Urban Outfitters, just looking at their book section, and I saw this title, The Princess Saves Herself in this one, and it just spoke to me. So the title instantly attracted me because of the fact that I've always related so hard to the idea that we don't need, we as women, or It could apply for any individual, but we don't need someone to come in and swoop us up and save us from all the misery. We're not damsels in distress. We don't need an individual on their white horse saving us. We are our own heroines. We can be our own heroes and heroines. Like, we are. Like, we can be and we are, and we should think of ourselves as such. We shouldn't rely on other individuals to save us and to make us who we want to be or to change our lives, because we can do that within ourselves. And I think like the princess saves herself in this one is like kind of a play on the idea that in all the other books and all the other fables, whatever, what have you, the princess is always saved for the most part. She's not typically the one who saves someone else, and she's not typically the one that saves herself. So that really spoke to me. So I'll be completely honest, I wasn't completely moved by this book. I felt like I didn't relate to the writing style and the content in its entirety, but I do have a few passages that totally moved me that I would love to share with you guys. So this one on page 42 says, "The princess locked herself away in the highest tower, hoping a knight in shining armor would come to her rescue. I didn't realize I could be my own knight," which goes along with the idea of what I was saying before about being your own hero. So not to get like dark or deeper or anything like that, but this one I'm about to read, just one sentence, but essentially touched me in a different way, because it's something that I've always felt as a person that is usually not really always open with like how they're feeling to people, and somebody who's trying to work on that. I felt this way a lot in my life. So it reads, "Silence has always been my loudest scream." I'll just leave you guys with that. I won't go into it. I'm sure you can understand what that means. So this next one is another book of poetry that is near and dear to my heart. It's called Wild Embers by Nikita Gill. And I actually found Nikita Gill on Twitter, Instagram, or one of those social media websites, and websites I say as if it's like not an app. On social media I found her, and there was a passage that I really related to that I just saw one day in passing online. I'll read it to you guys. It goes, "Her mother told her she could grow up to be anything she wanted to be. So she grew up to become the strongest of the strong, the strangest of the strange, the wildest of the wild, the wolf leading wolves." And that's from her, I don't actually know if this is the title of the book or just the title of the poem, but it's called "For the Red Riding Hood Who Was the Wolf." So after I found that online, I started following Nikita Gill, and I followed her on Instagram, Twitter, and everything. And she posted about this book she had just come out with, and it was called Wild Embers. So I went out and bought it, obviously. So this one is really interesting because it's all about our relationship with the universe and the connection that we have with the universe. So I really like that aspect of it, as well as the aspect of she's really cool. She takes a lot of concepts that we have that are prevalent in our society, and she rewrites those concepts, and she often questions those concepts, such as the idea that boys will be boys, and why can't girls be girls if boys can be boys, and all these different scenarios. And she talks a lot about womanhood and how society kind of brands womanhood or puts us in these certain categories, and how, you know, big double standards of our society and such. And then what's really cool, the whole thing is just, I love it. This is so good. It's such a good read. It will get you in your feelings immediately. Essentially, something really unique that she does is that she actually takes all of the fairy tale stories. Well, I'm not sure if it's all of them, but she takes a bunch of fairy tale stories such as Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, all those stories, and she rewrites them in a way that is fair to the protagonist, who's the woman, and all the other individuals in the story. So it's really, really cool. So out of those stories, Sleeping Beauty on page 60 was my favorite, and I know it's a long passage, but I'll read it quickly. So it starts, "The version of Sleeping Beauty I tell my daughter will be a fairy tale about consent before it is a fairy tale about true love. In it, I will pause and ask her, do you think it was right for the prince to kiss a girl who was unconscious just because he thinks she is pretty? And I expect her to say, no, no, it is not. In my story, Aurora will not marry the prince. In my story, Aurora will stand tall, say no to a marriage with a man she barely knows, and rule her father's kingdom all on her own. I will use this story to help her understand no boy has the right to touch her without her consent just because he thinks she's pretty. I will teach her to say the word no before she learns yes. I will teach her that others may think she is being difficult, but no one's opinion matters as much as her own. And most important of all, I will teach her never to feel guilty or wear her body as though it is a gift to anyone except herself." So that was just like, oh my goodness, like I actually like want to say those words to my daughter. It really touched me so much because I think like growing up with those fairy tales, I always loved those ideas, and I'm a hopeless romantic and such, but I think also it's made me very disillusioned in a way of like swanning of kind of, I know it doesn't exist, but just still yearning underneath for the idea of like a fairy tale kind of life. So yeah, I guess it's less of her rewriting the stories and more just making a commentary on the story. Oh my gosh, there's so many passages that I just love in this book, but I think what I'll do is I'll just write the page numbers down below for each book, because I will literally list a list of passages that I like for all of these books that I'm sharing with you guys. But I chose, out of all the pages I've written down, I chose this one, and it's titled For Her. Every day I thank the girl in me that believed my life could still be something magical, even when the darkness was enough to chew her up and spit her out. Even when the ledge was close enough for her to end it all. She still chose life, and I owe it to her to make something incredible of myself. On the days I'd succeed, I put my hand on my heart and whisper to her, "This is for you." I mean, like, I can't even, I could unpack this all, but essentially, this resonates so much with me because I have been through, I've had just a really, really difficult relationship with myself and kind of finding myself and learning to love myself. And there were points where I just literally was like wanting to end it all, essentially thinking that I had nothing to offer, really hating myself. And there was a little bit of glimmer of hope always in the back of my mind, like of thinking like, you know, it's not worth it. You know, life is so beautiful, even if it's the smallest thing. I think one of the biggest things that always gets me through really tough times and getting really down on myself is my little sister. I think of her and how I just want her to have the best life ever. And the only way I can help her to get there and to do that is to be alive on this earth and to be the best version of myself, so I in turn can help her be the best version of herself and to ensure that she has the best life humanly possible. So that's like one of the motivators that got me through. I'm going on a tangent, of course, but essentially I always dug myself out of any dark depths, and I always allowed myself to remember like life can be great. You can make the best out of your life no matter how low you are, no matter what odds you're facing. Essentially, you've got this one life to live, so live it. Even if it's really hard, even if it takes years to get to a place that even makes sense, which it did for me, it's still worth it. So yeah, that's what I've been reading in the past 6 months or so, and I hope you guys enjoyed those recommendations. I'll leave all the information to all the books that I mentioned down below. And I also just quickly before going wanted to let you guys know that currently I'm reading The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, which I'm really loving, and I'm sure you guys have all heard about this. It's a literary classic. It's essentially a story about the post-World War I, I believe. Yeah, the post-World War I generation, and just kind of big picture life kind of story. It actually, I would say the plot line, the premise is somewhat similar to that of Kurt Vonnegut's Cat's Cradle as well. I'm loving it, but I'm not finished, so I'm gonna finish this, and maybe in 6 months I'll do another, or maybe I'll just start doing like a review of a book after I read it or something like that. That could be fun or interesting. But yes, I'll be done with this shortly, and then next on my docket is, of course, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. I just really connected with his writing style in Cat's Cradle, and I just love that book so much. I'm actually planning on rereading it after I get through some more new books. But yeah, so this is next on the docket, and I'll probably share that with you guys as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm excited to kind of do more videos on books and reading because I love reading. And now that I'm getting back into it, I just feel like I have so much to talk about and so much to share, and I want everyone to read all these great books that I've read. Or maybe something will resonate with somebody or intrigue somebody, so I want to share. And also, if you're interested at all, I do often on my Instagram stories and just on my feed, I'll post about books I'm reading and like my thoughts or whatever. And I also have like a highlight section that's called Goodreads, and it's just like about random things that I'm posting about what I'm reading. So yeah, you can find me at Tamas Leanne, of course. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.